But then how could he get on board with this presidency? How could somebody who, his interpretation of Scripture is pretty different from mine to begin with. Okay, my understanding of Scripture is that it is about protecting the stranger and the prisoner and the poor person, and that idea of welcome. That's what I get in the gospel when I'm in church. And his has a lot more to do with sexuality and, a certain view of rectitude. But even if you buy into that, how could he allow himself to become the cheerleader of the porn star president?
Well, I don't know who that guy is, but I'm Barry Gordon.
And I'm Andre Coleman.
And this is NewsRap, live at 5. Actually, I do know who that guy is. Now, let me ask you something.
Go.
What if you heard that there was a candidate running for the presidency as a Democrat?
Okay.
Who was a millennial, not just pretending to be a millennial or close to being a millennial.
So we're talking about a true millennial.
An actual millennial.
Okay.
Who was a war veteran.
Okay.
Who was a Rhodes Scholar, who graduated from Harvard.
Did he?
And
wait, a Lori Loughlin getting into Harvard thing, or did he really?
No, he really went to Harvard.
Okay.
And was openly gay.
I'd be curious. I'd want to have a conversation with him.
Want to have a conversation, right?
Yeah, let's see what he's about.
Want to see what he's about. Well, that's who you just saw. That's a guy named Pete Buttigieg.
How did you say that?
I think it's Buttigieg. It might be Buttigieg. I don't know. It might be
He's running for president?
Buttigieg. I don't know what, but yes.
So he's getting jiggy with it.
Pete Buttigieg. And he had kind of a moment there.
President Buttigieg.
Yeah, that was kind of a cool moment.
It was. And you know what? That's a guy, just from that moment, I did not see it live when it happened. I haven't watched any of the town halls because I think that kind of thing, until we really kind of get into combat and primary season on this thing, or a little further down the line.
Yeah.
I know CNN is just trying to kind of cover its bases and get relationships with everybody and give everybody some airtime. You don't see a great representation. Well, let me back that up. The people who have, and this is true in everything, people who have charisma always have charisma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you saw from this guy.
Right.
The people who can campaign, they may not be going their strongest right now, because I'm sure some people are talking about when do I peak, when do I go hard. But I'll tell you what I thought about this guy, Barry.
Yeah.
Based on the clip. That's a guy who could catch fire.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of has a John Krasinski thing going from The Office.
A little bit, yeah.
The guy from The Office.
Mm-hmm. A little shorter, but yeah.
A little shorter, kind of almost even like maybe a Burt Ward thing, the guy who played
Oh,
Robin.
God, I would do a little better than that.
Well, I mean, but that's...
Yeah, but okay.
There's a certain appeal to that kind of person.
Maybe Jason Bateman comes to mind. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Hoffman from The Graduate.
Okay.
But it's a guy who could catch fire.
Yeah.
And what I'm hoping in this election is I'm hoping somebody... I know you have your pick, but I'm hoping that somebody who we haven't seen does ignite the base.
I do too.
Capture the imagination of the people, because it forces everybody to do better.
Well, it does. But right now, if you look at the polling, the conventional wisdom is prevailing that they want a moderate, they want probably a white guy, probably Joe Biden. And that's what everyone's waiting for, Joe Biden right now. And, I don't see that working. I don't see that as the future of the party.
Right now, it's not the future of the party because the guy's not in the race.
That's right.
Stop polling about a guy who's not running.
That's right.
So I don't know what the real numbers are as far as favorability.
Very true.
And who has a chance because
of who is in the race
yes,
already.
because they keep talking about a guy who's not in the race.
And they did that with Beto, but now Beto's in
now
the race.
Beto's in the race, or
Yeah.
he thinks he's in the race. Doesn't really look like it based on these first couple of days.
Yeah.
But again, the same goes for him. We'll see what he can do when it's time to really do it. My personal opinion and instinct tells me that guy needed to be in this race when Harris got in.
That guy meaning
Beto.
Okay.
Because if you're going to come late to the party, you better be the guy who can walk into the party and turn every head.
Yeah.
And doesn't look like he did it. All right.
Yeah.
Is that a quote?
There's an interesting question, actually,
All right.
from someone we know well. Are we looking for someone to look presidential or be presidential? For me, the latter. I don't care what they look like.
Can you have the latter without the formal? Can you be presidential without looking presidential? Has anybody ever done that? Bush Jr.?
I don't think he was very presidential, do you?
9/11 maybe he was that one day.
9/11 he was. 9/11 he was.
I'd like to see
And
some,
in retrospect, the way he handled, Islam and
Yeah.
dealing with that was more presidential.
but he didn't look or sound presidential.
He did
all
not
the time.
look or sound presidential. Jimmy Carter didn't look or sound presidential all the time. Hardly ever, actually.
Yeah.
He became significant as an ex-president.
Oh, probably one of the greatest ex-presidents of all time.
Yeah.
I would say that I'm going to agree with Barry. Nobody's going to say that they want the former, obviously. I prefer the latter, but based on what we have right now, it is very important that we get somebody who can look presidential also. Because what we have right now, when you have somebody who does not look presidential, it is disastrous.
Well, I think what Danielle means when we say look presidential is, maybe I'm wrong, kind of tall.
Well, clarify
and,
it, Danielle.
And stately.
Yeah, Bruce Wayne thing.
And does that necessarily mean a white guy? Hopefully not anymore. Does it necessarily mean a guy? We don't really know.
Okay.
What I would say is I want someone to be presidential, but that includes behaving presidentially.
So answer the question that's up there.
So what exactly is your prospective model president? It would be someone who is very intelligent,
Okay.
very knowledgeable about virtually all of the issues, like someone I can think of who's on the Armed Services Committee.
So you want me to run?
Education and Labor Committee and has studied economic issues for an entire lifetime. So really has expertise, is intelligent, preferably charismatic, although that's not necessarily high on my list. Someone who can persuade, someone who can educate, someone who can represent what is best in America, represent the best values we have, not the worst values we have. And then add to that policies, add to that someone who, is going to put forward what I would like to see, which is a progressive agenda that can pass. And by the way, that was, for me, the mistake that Beto made. Because right away, they asked him about health care, and his first answer was, it's probably going to take more than one party. Well, once you say that, what you're saying is you're not going to get it. Because the fact is, right now, the parties are at polar opposites. There's no way to get around that. There is no centrist wing of the Republican Party. It doesn't exist. And even with this last vote that happened that we saw, we're going to see, I guess,
In a second here.
in a second, but with that vote, it still doesn't mean that there's this whole centrist wing waiting to happen. Right. What it means is that they were protecting their prerogative. They were protecting their institution.
Now, I give you the things.
And by the way, only temporarily, because they will not override the veto.
Of course. I'm going to give you your things that I'm going to agree with you on the things that you say you need to see. But I'm going to tell you what I need to see. I need to see tolerance.
Oh, heck yes.
And
but that's what I mean by the values
course.
that are important.
Of course.
Of course.
But to narrow that down,
yes.
I need to see tolerance. And I'm not just talking about
I'm with you
tolerance
there.
for, I'm not just talking about racial tolerance. I'm talking about gender.
Yep.
I'm talking about people with LGBTQ.
Yep.
And one of the things that I really liked about Obama was when he came around on that issue.
Me too.
And when he said, hey, I was here, I made a mistake, and however he said it, he
Yeah.
came around on that issue.
He did. He did.
So I can't wrap presidential up into this nice little package and say you have to look this way or know these policies. I just know that the issues that are important to me, the values I teach my kids to uphold,
Yeah.
are the values I want to see in a president. That's tolerance. But at the same time, I teach my kids to stand up for themselves.
Right.
So I need somebody who, when it's that time, they need to be able to stand up and say, no, I'm right, period. Because you're not going to be able to work left, right all the time.
Right.
So sometimes, I thought he was applying for the job. Sometimes, it's just my side is right,
Yeah.
and that's the way it is. So all this, we're going to have to work together, and we got to kumbaya. You don't have to do all that all the time.
Well, you can't.
Yeah, it's just
I
not-
mean,
it's not real life.
It didn't work. Obama tried it. It didn't
And that
work.
was his biggest problem.
That was his biggest problem. Whoever is going to be the nominee, what I want to hear is something I will not hear from the nominee. This is what I want to hear. Okay, I have these great plans for this country. None of them are going to happen if you don't help me keep the House and win the Senate.
Of course.
And that's what you've got to do.
You've got to jump on Democrats.
And if you put us in and give us all three of those, then we can flip the Supreme Court a little bit.
And we'll cruise.
And we can do
We can do
Medicare
a lot
for
of
all,
great
and
things.
we can do
Right.
a Green
Right.
New Deal.
Right.
And we can do a wealth tax. But anything that's going to require this kumbaya, let's all get together, is going to be so meaningless.
Right. Because you're not going to get there. It's just
It's
talk.
not going to have an
It's talk.
impact. And
It's talk.
that's what scares me about this election and the conventional wisdom, because right now they're looking at people like Beto and they're looking at people like Biden who have this reputation of let's just all get along. And you know what? That day is over.
Yeah.
It's past.
Well-
I'm sorry. I wish it hadn't been. I wish it wasn't past. I used to be that guy. And I'm telling you from my heart, I'm not that guy anymore. I can't be, because I have seen what
course.
the Republicans do when they're in power. Now, I'm not saying that we have to trample the rules
Right.
when we're
They
in
eat
power.
you.
And we can be civil, but we got to win.
Right.
And it's that simple. Now, some local stuff.
There you go.
I cannot sign off on executing hundreds and hundreds of human beings, knowing that among them will be innocent human beings.
On March 13th, Governor Gavin Newsom issued an executive order to apply a reprieve to the application of California's death penalty, leaving 737 incarcerated individuals on death row. 13 individuals have been put to death by the state since 1976. Wealthy entrepreneurs, athletic coaches, SAT proctors, and celebrities are among those charged in the largest college admission scam deemed Operation Varsity Blues. The scheme was orchestrated by William Singer through bribes passed off as donations to his nonprofit organization, Key Worldwide. Singer brought in $25 million spanning from 2011 to 2018.
The FBI uncovered what we believe is a rigged system, robbing students all over the country of their right at a fair shot to getting into some of the most elite universities in this country.
Schools like USC have begun to look into related cases and have stated we will make informed, appropriate decisions once those reviews have been completed. The Boeing 737 MAX 8 has been grounded in North America after facing scrutiny for keeping them in circulation after the second fatal crash for the model in 6 months. President Trump declared the grounding after new information was found regarding the crash that killed 157 people.
Agreeing with this, the safety of the American people and all people is our paramount concern.
North America previously stood firm behind the FAA's decision to keep the 737 in circulation. The United States and Canada are the last two major countries to join the grounding of the model.
That was sad.
It was.
Very, very sad. And you noticed at the beginning of the brief they showed Governor Newsom very briefly. And it kind of tied in with what we were talking about because he has a supermajority of both houses. He can basically do what he wants. And still, I wouldn't say that he's gone crazy. I think we have a very, very good progressive state.
I don't know if that decision about the death penalty, it was not popular with everybody.
No.
For sure. But you know what? He made a decision and he followed the decision. And it's part of the agenda. And that's always been his agenda.
Are you pro-death penalty?
I'm case by case.
Are you?
I think we should have it, personally. I don't have a problem with us having it because I do think you can do some things where we got to take you out.
Okay. I'm opposed to it in principle. But
see, so like this. If somebody took you out, they got to go.
Well, thank you, Dre, but I still am opposed to it. I'm still opposed to it in principle. But first of all, I don't think it deters anything. I think it's just so. What you're really talking about is retribution.
Well, that's what prison is. Prison is retribution. It's not to reform anybody.
Right. Well, unfortunately,
it's just let's keep you away from sane people.
Isn't that why we're trying to reform it, though? Right.
I don't think they're ever going to do it, but I think it's worth a shot at it. You know. So
I know
it is what it is.
You wanted to talk about
this college thing,
man.
Yeah. What did you think about that first?
I'm not terribly surprised. I mean,
you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know that was illegal.
Really?
Well, people have been. Look, let's go realistic for a second.
Well, there's been legacy for years. I mean.
Well, why do you think those people want to make millions and millions of dollars? Why do you make millions and millions of dollars if you can do so? So you can live a better life.
Right.
And then you can pass that better life on to your kids.
Right.
So what do we think people have been doing with their money since millionaires began walking the face of the planet?
Okay, so how is this one different?
It's not. It's now suddenly illegal. But what's the difference between this and buying the school a building to get your kid in?
Well, that's what I'm asking. That's done all the time. So is it just the cash that makes it illegal?
I don't know, and that's what I've been asking myself. And let's back up for a second. The guy
and whose pockets did it go into?
There you go. Now let's back up. The guy whose kid has 2 left feet, and he buys the Little League team new uniforms, and his kid gets to start.
Yeah.
Is that illegal? Because it's the same thing.
No, I don't think so.
No, it's not. So I'm not supporting this. I'm just saying I'm shocked a big deal's being made out of it because it's what's always happened.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. In fact, we have a comment on it from behind the curtains.
Wow, it's Oz.
They should make the parents pay up to $1 million in scholarships for those students who were bumped from.
But how do you know who's bumped from the list?
How do you know who's bumped from the list?
That's right. You'll never find out.
No.
And should the kids be kicked out? Because if it's wrong,
is it their fault?
See, it's not their fault.
Right.
But it is their privilege. And if it's wrong, then you have to remove the kids. Because now you're saying, hey, you got in illegally, we got to kick you out.
Yeah.
But I don't ever want to hear anybody talk about affirmative action again if this has been going on. I don't ever want to hear it. I don't ever want to hear it. Because what they did have the money to pay for were tutors, coaches, trainers. They could have given their child every advantage to get in the right way. And they cheated. So I do agree they cheated if you say, hey, change my kid's score or find a way to say my kid is something my kid is not. That is cheating. I agree with that.
Yes.
My point is, though, it's just been going on for so long, and now we're going.
But the cheating is illegal.
It is.
Yeah.
But now we're all going, oh, my God, I can't believe these people did this. But it's what people of means have always done.
I think that's right.
You know,
Yeah,
so
I think that's right.
Are we going to break it all the way down to, to the yacht clubs and all those things where these kind of deals are made?
Well, we're not going to have to worry about it if Elizabeth gets her wealth tax. She'll just smack those people.
They won't have the money anymore, right?
That's right. They're not going to have the,
And apparently Bernie wants to take it too.
They'll pay it to the government. You know?
Bernie wants to take it too, apparently.
Yeah, Bernie kind of jumped on Elizabeth's bandwagon there.
Well, Bernie jumps on a lot of bandwagons.
I know. He kind of jumped on that one, though. And that was her issue.
It was kind of bad. So this thing in New Zealand, obviously, Barry, is a big tragedy.
It is. It's horrible.
The president's statements today about white nationalism.
Well, I mean, what did we expect? And B, I mean, all I could think of when I heard it, and I don't know if you heard it, it was a few hours ago that he made this statement, and he was asked about whether he believed that white nationalism was a major problem, basically. I'm paraphrasing, right? And he said no. He did not. He said the way he described it, I think, is he said it's really just a small group of people with serious problems. And I thought about that, and I thought, wouldn't that description fit Islamic jihadists?
Of course.
Because compared to Islam, they're certainly a small group of people. And they misinterpret the Quran. I mean, any legitimate interpretation of the Quran wouldn't lead to terrorism. So they have obviously some mental issues going on. But I don't think he would say, well, let's just go get them a doctor, which seems
right.
to be the implication for white nationalists, is that, they got a little bit of a screw loose and let's not worry about it, rather than the kind of growing, almost epidemic problem that has existed in this country for the last 3 years. And
what problem is that?
Triggered by him.
What problem is that?
White nationalism. White supremacy. White nationalism. This idea of hatred of the other. I mean, it's always been here.
Don't you mean racism?
Yes, I mean racism.
See, that's a problem. The problem I have with this kind of stuff,
I do mean racism.
I know you do, and that's the problem I have with this kind of stuff is when I see hearings in Congress, most of the congressmen are such they ask horrible questions.
Yeah, they do.
And then I see reporters on TV asking the good questions in the dumbest way.
Yeah.
White nationalism.
Yeah, right.
Why don't you just say racism?
Yeah, it's a euphemism for racism.
Yeah.
It's definitely is.
But why don't you just say racism?
Yeah.
Or white supremacy?
Yeah.
And then we get to it. You know what I mean? And then you can talk to him about what he said because he's going to go, I'm not a white nationalist.
Well, racism is maybe a little more amorphous. I think that there's something very concrete about white nationalism and white supremacy. Behind the curtains is back and said even in the face of mass murder, he was unwilling to condemn white supremacy. That's right. Because these are people, it's one thing to hate people of color. That's racism. Here, it is more Hitlerian. What we're really talking about is there is one pure race, and it is the white race. And I think it's a little more, it has a racist component to it. It's certainly racist. I think it's even beyond racism.
What we tend to do is when we get around to race and we get around to these tolerance issues, a lot of time our media, and I'm a member of that, we take it out of the country and we say, okay, like Hitler did, or like this country did.
No, it's this country.
I'm not saying you're saying that.
Yeah.
But my point is this. This is like Jim Crow.
Yep.
Let's take it back to what it was in our own country. Now, it didn't happen here.
Right.
But this is the example everybody can understand.
But that was white supremacy.
Exactly.
I mean, you label it racism, I might label it white supremacy because the whole point was
they are the same
there
thing.
is an inferior race.
Of course. But, and while Hitler goes Aryan superiority and all that type of thing and supremacy, we are talking about putting one race above another, above every other race.
That's right.
Which is how big swaths of land for this country were seized, how millions of people were enslaved, raped, killed, and not just black people. Let's lay it out there. But you have to lay this out to this guy like this.
Yeah, you do.
Forget about white nationalism and all this stuff. Look, straight up. Let's talk about people putting hoods on. That's what we're talking about going back to.
Well, when we saw people putting swastikas on,
yes,
he said there are good people on both sides.
Exactly. And then you come back to...
And it's kind of the same thing he did today. The only difference was today he said it was terrible. And then he said they have serious problems.
But in his tweet,
but I mean, he described it, someone who should go into rehab.
Yeah, because it's.
I mean, he didn't describe it as
He did not.
as horrifyingly and then what did he call the few people that are coming over the southern border? He called it an invasion.
He brought it right back to his thing.
Right.
But in his tweet, he said that New Zealand had his warmest sympathies.
I know.
How in the hell do you give them the warmest sympathies? That's not what this is. This doesn't call for that.
No.
This calls for you talk about what this is. And he has not come out against. He kept going, Obama wouldn't say.
Yeah, Islamic terrorist. Right.
You come back to, look.
And he won't say white terrorist.
He won't.
No.
And that's what this is.
He will not.
And he won't say he doesn't want these people not to support him.
That's right. No, he will not. Well, we're going to end a little bit early because we have to. And but we want to spend a little moment, saying a special farewell to someone who has just been incredible for us.
Yes.
Our producer, Danielle Ross, who's leaving us today.
Really sad.
And really, really sad. We're going to miss her a great deal, but she's moving on to a higher calling, I think. But we're pleased to announce also an addition to our family, which is Hannah Ramirez. So a sad farewell to Danielle. Happy welcome to Hannah.
Yep.
And that's it for us. So we're going to head over to Studio B.
All right. We'll see you there.
All right. This is NewsRap.